Welcome. Michael is just letting people into the meeting, so we'll give them a couple of minutes just to dial in. And we've had quite a number of people that have indicated that they will be joining us. So welcome once again. I see some familiar faces and names. Welcome. Hi, Ian.
Yeah. I think always, Enrico, I guess you can also start, and I think people will come in like a couple of minutes and like start. Should be fine. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Michael. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Enrico Kibido, and I'm the city leader for the DueDash Cape Town Sparring Ring. 2020 was supposed to be 2020. However, we were dealt a major blow by COVID-19, and many of us were impacted in different ways. Resilience was needed to survive and find a new normal, and an event of this nature would have been face-to-face with physical interaction. However, it was not meant to be. So welcome everybody once again. So today is also a significant day in our country, as it is the start of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Let us all be committed to treating females, especially with dignity and respect. It's quite an important aspect that we need to live by, and let's do what we need to do in terms of making sure that we treat everybody with the respect and dignity that they deserve. And also a special welcome to you all and esteemed panel, Ellen Fisher, who will moderate the panel discussion, Carl Madden, who is the co-founder of DueDash, Antoinette Brophy, Whitney Tennant, and Ivana Osagi joining us from Nigeria. I would just like to do a short introduction to DueDash and you know what we do and how we then operate in terms of what we do. Michael, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah, 1 second. Yep.
Okay, let's see. There you go. So at DueDash, the objective is making startups investable. So the biggest challenge that most startups face is the access to capital and investors. And as we know, very few of the startups ever raise any funding. So with DueDash, what we do is we bring together founders, investors, and experts from the global startup community together to educate on startup and fundraising processes and help startups to become investable. So that is what we have done, and we've also then taken down to what we call city groups. So we form city groups, and each city will have a different one. So we've got over 16 city groups in over 90 countries. So the objective is to strengthen and engage with your local startup network, because it starts there and you get familiar with your environment and you see where the opportunities lie. And you can find co-founders or team members and learn from experts worldwide. We validate and test your ideas and find early users and customers. Join local, global environments, and we also offer free investment readiness checks for credits, and we give to startups, to get ready and get started. So all these services are free, and the paid services would be introduced at a later stage, and that's how we're then building the ecosystem and taking it forward from there. So what we offer at DueDash is an investment readiness check, which is quite unique in terms of how we then analyze, improve, and get startups in front of investors. Many startups, they think that they're ready to present, to pitch their idea, and they come short most times because they don't understand how to engage and what to engage about it. So with our investor readiness check, we work with a number of partners which can offer you benefits of up to $25,000. So as I mentioned, our founder sparring rings are based in cities, and that's where you create value and we have structure. And we understand that the environments and geographies are different in each city, and we then try and harness the skills and opportunities within the local environment, but with a global feel to it. So we call it a global model, where you have a local feel but a global reach, and that's how we then make sure that we then get hold of everybody to get their businesses going. So for more information, you can visit the website, speak to Michael, or contact myself, and then we can see how then we can take it forward. But that is just in brief, DueDash. You can have a look at it, and then please join and then connect with me and the team, and then we can see how we can assist you to build your networks. So without any further ado, I will then hand over to Ellen to run the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enrico. I appreciate that. So good afternoon to everyone that has joined us. At least it's afternoon in Cape Town. That's where I'm based. My name is Ellen Fischert. I am an impact entrepreneur. I'm an activist for economic empowerment, especially economic empowerment of marginalized groups. And I am very, very, very excited to be hosting and to have this honor to have a real discussion, because the women that we have today and that will be speaking and sharing their stories, their pains, but also their gains and their wins with us, are phenomenal women. They are real women, and the idea is to have a real conversation today. So a couple of house rules before we get started. You will see that everyone is muted, and unfortunately you will remain muted until we get to the questions and answers at the end of this session. I do, however, encourage you, because that's the whole basis of a network, and especially a connected network, is to pop your name if you want to in the chat box, please, with the question. So I'm based in Cape Town, so I would say Ellen from Cape Town wanting to ask Antoinette this question, or ask Ivana. So please don't wait until the end, because you are going to hear so much today that you will forget that question. And we'd really like you to have the opportunity to engage with our panelists. It also gives us an idea of what is needed for DueDash to succeed, not only in the city, but in the country. And the world has very much changed. So as Enrico said when we started off, we can't continue with business as normal. And I'm very pleased to welcome, as someone from the ecosystem in South Africa, DueDash to our country. And even more pleased that everyone seems to get these days that we can do everything we want to do. We can meet, we can run businesses, and we can connect intentionally and with real purpose online. So those are the two things. You'll be muted. Please pop your questions into the chat box. And yes, I'm very keen to get started. I have the opportunity, and this doesn't happen every day or every month, that I get to facilitate a discussion between such phenomenal women. I'm going to be just giving you a very brief insight. Please, ladies, there's no offense intended, but if I was to read everyone's bio, people might drop off. So I don't want to be speaking. I want to hear what you are saying, and I would encourage everyone to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. But I'm going to start in no particular order and introduce our panel for today. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Parul Madan. I'm very excited to have her. She's the founder of DueDash. Parul, welcome and congratulations on opening up a local office in Cape Town, and Enrico leading this. And I think you've chosen well, because Enrico has been very wise in ensuring that he has some strong women at his side to ensure the success of DueDash. So that was very strategic. For those of you who are not familiar with Parul, there's many things this woman has done. She is absolutely what you want to be one day when you grow up. A Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics and Telecommunications, advanced diploma in computing. She's got a management in leadership and planning from IIM in Calcutta, and is an alumni of MIT Sloan School of Management. She holds several industry certifications. What's important to know is that Parul is an experienced entrepreneur. She's founded and exited many companies in the field of telecommunication software, gamification, and mobile event applications, healthcare, and edtech. She's also an active early stage investor in 39 startups in the USA, Europe, and Asia. Parul has launched a pre-seed accelerator program with the Founder Institute in Cologne in 2017 to encourage startups by leveraging the Silicon Valley mindset. One of the things I'm going to come back to, because we're hosted in Europe, we're in Africa. I'm sure there are some callers also in from the States. So mindset is something that's very important and that I'm going to be talking about later. In a corporate stance, Parul has led billing and customer provision. She's led many strategic large-scale integration projects, and also the launch of digital TV services in 2003 and 2001. So we've got an absolute phenomenal woman here who knows her business and who is in business. And Parul, welcome. I'm very happy to be hosting you today. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Ivana Oseji. Ivana is based in Lagos, so she's calling in from Lagos. She's the founder of the Professional Women Roundtable. It's a female leadership and career development and gender diversity consulting firm which operates across Africa. She's also an angel investor and a member of Rising Tide Africa, a female angel investors network, where she's on the board of directors. She's an experienced C-suite level executive with over 25 years experience in cross-functional and multicultural settings, with 15 years exactly in the downstream and petrochemical industry. She's held roles at Morgan Stanley, at Merrill Lynch, HSBC in the UK, and also with Notor Chemical Industries in Nigeria, where she was one of the directors for corporate development and strategic projects. Ivana holds an MSc from the University of West England and an MBA from the University of Liverpool, and it goes on and on and on and on. So really mind-blowing. I'm very excited and honored to introduce one of our other panelists, Antoinette Profi, local from South Africa. Antoinette started her entrepreneurial journey in 2004 after leaving McKinsey Company. So taking all of that goodness that she learned, implementing it and doing it herself to positively influence how business is done in Africa. She started her first business, Afrofusion Advertising, in her mother's lounge. And over the past 16 years, she has gained extensive experience in accessing new markets by taking her first business to Uganda, and then to Kenya, and then to Nigeria. She's a very brave woman, let's just say that. She's passionate about entrepreneurial space across the continent and shares very generously her experience and her expertise by mentoring early stage founders. She's been featured on television. She launched the 88 Business Collective in 2016 and focuses on accelerating female founders, utilizing her growth through collaboration methodology. She's also recently co-founded Profree and Profi, a wearable tech startup with her sister. So these women aren't playing around, guys. And last but not least, I'm very pleased and very honored. I don't know, I've never met her, but I know of her, to invite Whitney Tennant. She is the CEO and founder of Brave Orbit, a software development agency. Brave Orbit specializes in working with companies and organizations that are social or environmental impact orientated. She's the organizing member of PyCon ZA, the largest Python software conference in Africa, and helps direct Coder Level Up, which is a nonprofit organization that teaches kids to code. Without any further ado, I'm going to dash straight into the agenda of today. It's really an honor to have all of you. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, Parul, seeing as you are the founder of DueDash globally, one of the founders. I'd like to know from you, you know, I've said a bit about the fact that you wanted to leverage the Silicon Cape mindset, and that's why you started DueDash. But I want to know, what were the other reasons that you decided to start this global ecosystem or network convener, I would say, within an ecosystem? And how did you grow that and its impact? And how do other women that are listening in and us as ourselves, how do we do this?
Thank you, Ellen. It's been a fantastic introduction for everybody, and I'm really happy to be here today with all of you. And welcome from DueDash as well. And it's the first event for the Cape Town sparring ring. So really happy to have Enrico kicking this off as well today with all of you. And I'm really surprised the amount of information you gathered about me, and you went to really way back in time for me. So that was really a good deal of work that you did there. And thank you, reminded me of some fond memories there. So having said that, my business building process had been predominantly into B2B space and not really B2C space. And after exiting from the businesses, as the building up phase was from 2007 till 2013, and then there were some parallel pursuits. I've been actively investing in startups through acquisitions or also investments into just purely as risk capital into startups for the last 5 to 7 years. And during that process, obviously, I met a lot of founders and companies and different people. And as part of giving back, we started and launched this accelerator program and came in contact with a lot of ecosystem players. And as an active investment, so you mentioned a number there. So as you can imagine, we went through a sizable number of pitch decks to review and assess. So after going through that, we realized there is no systematic process of doing an assessment of a startup or a startup team or an idea, because everybody comes with a different kind of a vision, different view on problem solving. Every founder has their own journey. Every company has their own journey. And with that thought process, the thesis has been going on for more than 3 years now between me and my co-founder, Nikhil, who's also my life partner. And we both invest together in startups as well through our holding company. That's how the idea of DueDash was born. It was called something else that time. We changed the name once we launched it earlier this year. But we were pivoting constantly on our thesis and how to go about it. And there were many components to it. So with a community platform, as you see today, when you go to community.duedash.com, it's a way to provide global access and network and knowledge base, so that we can bring early stage founders to the point of investability. So it's more like a giving back. 90% or more than 90% of this platform, as you may have noticed from Enrico's presentation also, that it will remain free. There are a few components of that will become, paid services, so to speak. But our goal is to basically build an investability platform, which is basically will be driven through artificial intelligence. It's going to be a private capital tool with a goal to reduce the time-consuming due diligence process by up to 40% for investors, so that the founders can come closer. The founders who really need the investment from the investors, they come closer to that investor and that investment decision in that period of time. So that's basically our goal, and that's going to be launched early next year. So there is a plethora of products that we have in our product strategy, in the overall DueDash strategy, and that will be coming in as well as we go along.
Okay, and then thank you for that, Parul. I mean, you're building on your strengths, and you've absolutely seen that there's a great lacking in the market, because it's one thing to start a business, it's another thing to be, as Enrico said earlier, investor ready. But then on top of that, what do investors want, and how do I prepare for that? So I think I'm really excited about the product, because I'm hoping that this platform also somewhat levels the playing field. A question I have, additional question I want to ask. So I mean, networks are important. Do you believe that, or how do you think that women that are not business owners like yourself, but maybe still in their full-time careers, can create networks to actually ensure that they progress in their career or in their business?
Yeah. I think it's a great question, and I often get that. So one way is obviously self-education, whatever you're passionate about or whatever you want to, wherever you want to upgrade your skills or find areas where the skills are transferable, if that is like becoming mundane and you can apply it somewhere else. So that's one way of doing it. And that is also one way of, if you're not doing it online with COVID times, you have an opportunity to meet other people if you're doing it at an institution and things like that. And today's date and time, we have meetups, we have a lot of events, and that is one way to socialize with people, find interest groups with whom you can engage. And it's very important to find people with, who want to progress, who want to get ahead, and that balance of interest and growth mindset is very, very important. And of course, with DueDash, we are growing our network. We are over 2,200 members worldwide from over 80 countries. We launched early May, and we do have some female representations, and I'll be happy to invite and have more and more people there so that we can do more for not only females, but everybody. We're gender agnostic, we are people agnostic. We believe in global vision, as it was mentioned earlier as well. So we want to connect the local communities at a global level, and that's our mission and our goal. And it's for everybody. Everybody can join for free, and that would be my 2 cents. And I'm sure everybody else has more to say on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Parul. I'm going to come back to you. But what's important is self-education, ensuring that you find the people that share the same interests as you do, having a growth mindset. And I think value alignment is very important. So sort of like linked to this question, the next question I'm going to ask all of you to answer. So please, now you have a chance to think of your response. But I'm going to start with you, Ivana. So I have to be very honest. I am always blown away by women from Nigeria or from West Africa. And whenever I've been to conferences or worked with them, I'm not usually quiet, but I'm always quiet, and I just stare with open eyes at these women because they are absolute powerhouses and it seems so natural. So could you tell me what sort of like sparked, what was the turning point for you to go from, being comfortably employed, having very senior positions, to making, taking that leap of faith and say, I'm going to be doing it for myself. I'm an African woman, and yet I'm going to set up a business that, includes technology, and I'm going to own it. What was the turning point, or what sparked that for you, Ivana?
Thank you, Aline, for your comments on Nigerian women. And thank you also to DueDash for having me here. Really nice to link up with all of these phenomenal women. So important that we work together as women. I think that at some point I started to feel like it was trying to squeeze size 6 feet into size 4 shoes. I felt like I was not creating as much value as I could be creating. I felt like I wanted to be in a different space, for starters. And then also, I think I woke up one morning and I just realized that almost like somebody had taken a paintbrush and painted a splash of entrepreneurial color across the landscape. And there was so much focus and discussion about entrepreneurship. And the third thing I think was that I realized I was getting older. And if I didn't do it now, then when? So I think those were some of the things that I had in my mind. I think it's important to be curious and to see life as an adventure. So you have to be willing to take a risk. Sometimes there are no guarantees, but if you see life as an adventure, then okay, so I go down this road and it's the wrong road. I can always turn back. I can do something else. You have to have a growth mindset, like Parul said earlier, and don't have a mindset of expecting to get stuck. Be open, be curious, and see life as an adventure. So that's my answer to the question.
Thank you, Ivana. You see that spirit is just coming through, full of confidence. I'm going to go over to you, Antoinette, because the question, it sort of like relates to what I just asked, but not completely, because again, and I apologize if I'm being biased, but just West African women are just these powerhouses. And when I look at South African women, sometimes, that's not the majority. That's some of us who have been through the battle scars. So Ivana says, you've got to be curious about life. Life is an adventure. You've got to take risk. But the truth is, there's also bills to pay at the end of the day. So I want to ask you, when people are talking about vision and passion, and Ivana mentions, adventure, how do you turn those things into a business? Because that's something else. And I know that you're a very passionate person, but how did you do that?
Thank you so much, Ellen. A huge thank you to DueDash as well. And Enrico, thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, so for me, Ellen, I was sitting at McKinsey, 26 years old, 16 years ago. And it was one of those, McKinsey is one of those spaces where it's either up or out. And so I've gotten to a point where I was asking myself whether I was going to pursue going up at McKinsey or whether I was going to exit. And so I decided to exit. And I called my mom November 2003 and said, "Mums, I hope you're sitting down. I'm calling to tell you that I'm resigning today." So I come from one of those families where my mom expected me, after being at McKinsey, husband would follow, babies would follow. This was not going to be my life, right? So when I called her that day, I said, "Mams, I hope you're sitting down. I'm letting you know that I'm resigning today." And I knew that she was going to be disappointed. But I said to her, "I am resigning to start my own business. I'm not calling to ask for permission. I'm calling to ask if I can move back home so that I can save money while I start this thing." And so, Ellen, then I found myself in my mom's lounge, starting Afrofusion, my first business. And man, it was daunting. It was really overwhelming. But the beauty of being at McKinsey, and I echo what Parul said, is that you have to create networks. So for those that are thinking about embarking on this journey, if you're still in your 9-to-5, use that space to create as many networks or engage as many people as you possibly can. And the thing about networking is that you give more than you take. So I was fortunate enough to have created a beautiful space at McKinsey, and so I could call on those guys, and that's what I did. I mean, I was 26, Ellen. I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure how to. So I would call on the guys on my network relentlessly, especially the first year, I'd say, and ask them to review my how, ask them. Anytime I bumped into an issue, I had no issues asking for help. So that's the other thing I want to leave with female founders, is that sometimes we find it difficult to ask for help. Listen, my asking for help game is on another level. So I had no issues asking for help. And so I think that's what helped me in those initial stages. We landed our first contract after 9 months of knocking relentlessly on different doors. And after landing our first contract, I then grew the ad agency very organically and expanded to East Africa, as you've mentioned. I've employed over 80 people over the past 16 years. I've made millions, I've lost millions, so it's been a remarkable journey. But I'd say the one thing that helped me to start well, and I mean, the startup landscape was very different 16 years ago. We're talking about women making it into the space now. Can you imagine what it was like 16 years ago? There were little to few of us. So I'd say the one thing that really helped me was having a strong village of support and people that I could call on in those initial months.
I like that. The ability to ask for help, which cringe most of us find difficult because we're not supposed to, or we're not taught to ask for help for ourselves. And then having the support network, because as much as we and you ladies are here representing female founders and speaking very openly about the challenges and obstacles, you're obviously here because of your success. I think it's also important that you know, as you're mentioning, that there are very practical elements that we require in setting up our businesses to ensure that they are successful. Before I go over to you, Whitney, and ask you a question, I just want to make a comment. So I saw that there are a lot of males that I've called into, have dialed into the call. So thank you for your support and for wanting to listen to us. I just want to mention something, because that's not always a given. So sometimes in these sessions, and especially when there's a female panel, what I've seen, or when it's Women's Month or whatever, men think like, that's not for me. So I really applaud you for, you know, wanting to find out more about these female leaders. And as you can see, we are here, still alive. But also, a lot of women have not been raised to take up their space. A lot of South African women, I won't speak for women from Nigeria or Ghana, but for South African women, I know that for sure. And so it's important that it doesn't seem, and the reason why I ask these questions is so that people don't think that we just woke up here and that it's easy. There's a lot of, yeah, I like Parul's comment, for strong women need strong fathers and strong partners, exactly, strong support. So this is why we're going into that. Whitney, I'd like to come back to you. Thanks, Antoinette. So you have a software development agency, and I know that Haley Gray's in this call. I recognized her, and she also has a software development company. And what I am, you know, it's one thing to be a female coder and developer. It is a completely different business to actually start up your agency, to employ and to get buy-in, you know, just get clients. So I want to know, again, I'm asking the same question, but I'd like to be as practical as possible. How do we go from vision and passion, everything we read on Instagram the whole day, your vision, your passion, follow your purpose, to actually changing that into getting people to pay you for your service? Welcome, Whitney.
Thank you. And I feel extremely honored to be on a panel with such an incredible woman. I'm just like, wow, to be, so thanks so much. And thanks for the invite. So I really like the comment about trying to find your network. I think it's one of the things that's really important is to find a network of people that are kind of at your level when you're first starting. So going to meetups with investors or accelerator programs, things like that, you're going to meet people who are founders who are starting a business that have got interesting ideas that need them built. So that size of client is more appropriate when you first are starting out. And so being close to those kind of people is a really good starting point. So finding out about local accelerators that you can find out about, participating in DueDash, or, you know, these kind of networks are really, really great. Because I think when I first started, one of the things that became quite apparent to me is the size of businesses really matters. And that can be a personal decision as well when you're choosing your career. Some people are more suited to small size companies where they can wear multiple different hats. And sometimes you're more suited for a medium-sized organization, or you like the support of a large-scale organization. And so when you're first starting out, I think it's important to try and find a network of people who are understanding and aware of a startup's size, which is why I say stay close to these kind of communities, or communities like startup accelerators, because you'll find people like accountants or lawyers or people that can support you, but at your size when you're first starting out. So I would say that would be the first thing. And then generally speaking, I think just starting, you know, getting a website up, putting your foot out in faith, getting getting yourself ready to take that moment when somebody's like, oh, you know, I've got a friend who needs a project. And then you can say, my company handles that instead of just I handle that as a freelancer, you know, and then slowly start to talk about yourself as a company instead of, it's not anybody's business, whether it's just you to start off with. And then, you know, obviously you're going to need somebody to come in and assist you with these different projects. And then it starts to feel a bit more like a real company as things grow. But initially, you know, a business starts as simple as with you and a website, an idea, and putting yourself at the point where you could accept an opportunity.
I love that, Whitney, about the starting, because, you know, we could strategize forever, and there's never a right moment, I think, to you know, leave all of your you know, that security of the 25th of each month that you know something's going to be deposited into your account, and also about speaking, talking about yourself as a company. So I find that women use a lot of terms, including myself. I've unlearned that, but we sometimes tend to make ourselves smaller. We speak smaller about ourselves, and that's why we're also not perceived as a company or as having sufficient capacity. And then also the finding of networks. It really comes back to that. And you said aligning yourself, finding specialists, like-minded people that are at a similar phase. And I think growth starts with the little bits. So thank you for that. I want to go back to Parul, and I don't know if you have experienced this, but I mean, at the beginning, when Enrico explained, and what you also explained about DueDash, we know that one of the biggest problems still is access to capital, and it's access to markets. And you know, Whitney's touched on that a little bit. You start and it grows sort of like incrementally. When you started your business, I don't know if you were in a position of having to at some point fundraise, whether maybe you're a trust fund baby and you never had that problem, or maybe you had many doors shut in your face, as many of us have. I don't know. So what steps did you overtake to have that investment? And it could have been a capital, and that's what I want to talk about, the hard cash.
Yeah.
How did you go about this?
So I started out my entrepreneurial journey after becoming a mother. That was in 2007. And at that point in time, going back to corporate was always an option. So with being ex-Ericsson, I have open doors there, so I can just go anytime. But looking at the position I was in with the middle management, you know, a few steps down the CEO and a young child, and even if I was told I could sit in the basement of my house and work with the baby on my lap, it wouldn't have been practical. That my team was split in 2 different geographies within the country. I did some part internationally, and I had shadowing goals of 5 to 15 million. So that just meant I would be traveling a lot. So I just decided, guys, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go on my own. And that's how it started, and just called in my network. This is what is happening, and just found my niche, and just got started from there. So from that old school mentality, of course, I had to nip into my savings. So startup word, so-called, or taking risk capital was not fashionable out of Silicon Valley at that point in time. And the information was not very widespread as well. Seeking help or having mentorship was not at all fashionable. It meant that you're not strong, you're pretty weak, at least where I was located, mostly. So I had to do the old school way and just build the business from whatever I had needed to keep the capital for 6 months. So it means pretty much that you have to nip into your savings. You have to call in help from friends and families if they would be investing. And that's pretty much for startups as well, right? In today's day and time, the best way is to have a bootstrapping methodology by minimizing your expenses, finding the most optimal way. Like Antoinette also said, she reached out to her mom to minimize her expenses. And I like what Whitney said, hustling is the only solution. Go out and tell people, guys, I have this company, I can help you, or have your friends hustle for you one way or the other. And you got to be bold, and you need to, I think one of the core problems, in fact, I was doing a lecture in one of the MBA institutes here, and it's very surprising, even today's day and time, and with Gen Z, people, the girls still end up resigning before they have given themselves a chance. So why I say that, there was a young lady there in the MBA college, and she said, I want to go for a job and I have to think about it in such a way so that I can support my family. I said, you're in the first year of your MBA right now, and you're thinking of something like 3 or 5 years ahead in your life right now. You need to go out, get a job, establish yourself. Then you probably be lucky to find a partner, and then you're going to have a kid. So at least in a good scenario, this is 5 years ahead and you're planning for it today, and you don't want to give yourself chance what you might like, what you might want to do, where your passions will take you. So that's one of the things, when you said women have a tendency to downsize themselves or shrink their thought process. I like to encourage the audiences here, and especially girls, to reach out to the sky, find your wings, and find the wind beneath those wings to fly, and go out and catch the dream out there. It's for everybody, and I think we definitely need very strong fathers and husbands to support us to get to that.
I love that. I love that about, starting, and the nugget I'm going to take with me. And this is advice I gave to a potential founder yesterday as well. It was about make sure you've got 6 months, at least 6 months in the bank goal, because being hungry and an entrepreneur, I can tell you, is no joke. So absolutely, I love the practicality of having that. Having those savings, but also, I suppose we can always say this in hindsight, you can plan as much as you want to, but it's all about doing. And like Whitney also said, just starting. I'm going to go back to you, Ivana, and I'm still on the challenge or that we face with investment in Africa. So we see, I think it's something like 0.2% of VC funding is invested in over the entire world in African startups. I don't even want to know what that percentage is in women-owned and women-led tech startups. It could be 0.0002, and maybe also because we don't ask. How do you see other women dealing with that in your geography? Is because I still think there's a big difference in entrepreneurial sphere in Nigeria as there is in South Africa. Did you have to go out and raise capital, or are you a trust fund baby?
I'm certainly not a trust fund baby. So the research actually that I've looked at shows that women typically raise about $900,000 US compared to $2.1 million raised by male founders, right? And paradoxically, women, for every dollar of funding that they get, generate 78 cents in comparison to 32 cents raised by men. So, I mean, I'm also an angel investor. So I think for investors need to realize actually that they do themselves a disservice by not investing in more women, because the women actually generate higher returns on the investments, than the men typically do. And we need to get that message out there. I think that it's true that there are factors that affect us as women in raising funding. I mean, even today as we speak, I'm still knocking on doors, so it's something that you keep doing. So we need to get comfortable with who we are and the value that we bring to the table. If you are not convinced of the value you bring to the table and the value that your business actually create for other people, it's difficult to convince anybody else. A lot of times, the challenge we have as women is that lack in self-confidence. The same way that a man goes to knock on a door and the door gets shut in his face, the same way it happens to women. It probably happens a bit more for us as women, as we know. But we need to get comfortable with rejection. I read something somewhere that rejection is redirection. So we have to be tougher. I mean, it's sad but true, we have to be tougher. But I think we have to get centered and get confident in who we are. And a large part of that depends on surrounding ourselves with the right people who are able to tell us, remind us of who we are and the value that we bring to the table. I like the point that I think it was Perul and Antoinette said about networks. you have to have the right support system, because sometimes you get discouraged. It's human to get discouraged when you go knocking on doors. I mean, I had a door shut in my face even yesterday. And I had to sit down with a girlfriend, you know, to remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing. We have to be strong. We have to have thick skin. We have to have the support systems in place. And we have to be, I think you have to be bold and audacious in dreaming those big dreams. So I'm not going to cut myself down to size just because I get rejected. I'm going to keep going out and knocking on those doors. And if I get a rejection, I'll dust myself up and go off and knock on the same door. Focus on what I'm trying to achieve. Think not just about yourself. Think about the value your business creates for other people. Think about the customers who will benefit from the value that your business brings to the table. Because I think for us as women, a lot of times, we care a lot about what we can do for other people. So use that as fuel to motivate yourself. Don't just think about the money that you want to earn for yourself. Think about the value you're going to create, the joy you're going to create for other people through your business. And I think that also helps as motivation to help us go out there.
I love that. Think about the value that you're creating. And it's true, women are naturally, that's just our I think our DNA as well. You know, we're the nurturers, we're supposed to serve. And so that's why the rejection possibly is also is so painful. I want to go to you, Whitney, because I know with the NPO that you've started and all of the women that are here, either angel investors or invest their time and expertise, their brands towards you know, adding value, the value creation that Ivana was speaking about. So with all of this work that you do that's more in the nonprofit sector, I want to know, is that a strategy? And is it also something that, you know, Ivana just mentioned it, that we also actually need to talk about and not shy away from, that we do this? And I actually saw that there was a comment in the chat about, I think it's Nomusano, who said that she is, Onomusa, who's in South Africa and who runs this ICT club. What's your take on that?
So I think there's two components I'd like to answer. So the first thing, which touches a bit more on what Ivana and everyone else was saying, is this community of supporters is when the going gets tough and things get really grueling, is really, really important. And that's why it's also like a breath of fresh air in the middle of like crazy 2 weeks to have an online meeting like this, because we don't have this in the COVID times. And you kind of get a bit sheepish because sometimes you feel like you're too heavy to chat to your friends because you've got so much on your plate and you feel like you're just going to tell them a lot, like constantly tell them about your business or something like that. But having these people around you that are very supportive is extremely valuable. And yeah, but that's the first part, which I would say is strategic. And then when I talk about, when you ask about community work, I worked many years ago for a not-for-profit organization, and I've had certain situations in my life that have motivated me to work in the tech, or like in the impact space. And then paired with this love that I found for software development and tech and stuff like that, I decided that I promised myself one day I would go back into the Tech for Good NGO space, but I would approach it from a tech angle. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, is because I saw there were so many, like there was a lot of room for improvement in the way that the not-for-profit I was working for many years ago. But the community work that I do now is more just for the love of it. Like I really think that, so there's very few professions in the whole world that you can earn as much money as you can as a software developer without a degree. And I think it is one thing that could be exceptionally transformational for the whole of Africa if we had more people getting involved in tech, because you do not have to have a tertiary education. You can find all the resources online and it is totally empowering. And when you have access to a little bit of money and access to opportunities through tech, you can empower your family, you can afford more education, you can do all sorts of other things. So I'm very, very, very passionate about technical education and about teaching women in particular, because women don't have enough role models in the technical space. So you never know that you could become a coder because you've just never seen that, you know. So that's one of the things that I really, really care about in terms of economic development for our country. And I think that one of the reasons why I work with the kids is just because I met this amazing guy called David Campy at a conference. And I think, with our literacy issues in the country these days, there's incredible software programs that teach kids how to code. And it's not even like you're teaching them actually how to code. They play games. And if we can foster this idea that tech isn't as like binary ones and zeros matrix, so crazy complicated, coders are so smart, it's not true at all. It's like, it's just logical. The tools are out there, you can learn it. And I think that's what I enjoy, like from kids to adults. It's just a passion of mine. And that part is not strategic. It's just like something it bubbles out of me. I love it. So.
No, and I can absolutely hear that in your voice as well. I do want to say to you that I think it should be part of strategy if we're talking about shared values, if we're talking about how the world needs to change, if we're talking about how inclusion from all walks of life, genders, whatever is required. I think that we can actually lead the path in that way about empowering people through education and definitely being part of your business strategy. So I've got so many questions. I'm mindful of time. I'm going to go to you quickly, Parul, because I want to ask this question going back to what Whitney was saying about seeing, and I absolutely see this around me as well, from when you see the literacy issues that we have in South Africa and poverty that has such far-reaching implications. And we're talking about women in business. We're talking about women considering going into business. And I have to agree with what Whitney's saying, is that with the way things are today, it's not that we don't need computer scientists, but you can basically build your business from your phone. Most of my work I do from my phone and on WhatsApp and whatever. So, and you can make an incredible amount of money doing that as well. I want to come back to this section because I think it's important, and if it isn't for the women listening in, I think it's also for the men, the fathers, the partners that are listening in, to understand more about this intrinsic narrative that we have. So a lot of women don't go into business because they have misconceptions about technology, they have misconceptions about their ability to manage these huge budgets, be responsible for employing 80 people. In your experience, what is the best way, if you don't come from that supportive environment, or if no one is a business person in your family, to rewrite that narrative, and how do we communicate this to ourselves and the rest of the world?
I think it's a very interesting question, right? So business, whether you come from a business background or not, it is immaterial. So I can relate to it, what you're saying, because I come from a business background, from a business family. My father was an industrialist, whereas my parents-in-laws, they were not, they were bureaucrats. And so my husband had to struggle that. I didn't have to. But having said that, the traditional businesses are changing. Everything is technology driven, like yourselves. And a lot of traditional businesses are struggling. They wouldn't be, we've seen disruption happening in the last 10 years, more so. And the pace of acceleration of this disruption is only increasing, and it will only increase. And I personally feel post-COVID, we're going to just see that in the next 5 to 8 years, we'll see the next wave of new types of businesses, new types of entrepreneurs emerging out of it. We've seen Amazon valuation going out of the roof during this time. So having said that, I think that narrative has to continuously evolve, that learning, self-improvement, self-learning has to continuously go. And going back to women, we have to manage the household. We need to have a budget at home. We need to manage a lot of chores at home and a lot of stuff that's happening around. So the management skills primarily are there, and they are transferable skills. They can be implemented very easily on the business side. And if the skill is not there, that can be absolutely hired. like, all the panelists have said, go out and seek for help and hire the skills, wherever you feel uncomfortable, and find your strengths first of all, because when you hire a complementary skill, that's the best use of the skill set when you're starting out and optimizing your expenses as well. And you'll have to be on a lookout to see how the industry is changing, how the markets are evolving, how the customers you need to serve, their needs are changing. What are they demanding? Are they still looking for the same set of services or products, or are they looking for something else? What are the trends internationally? And in the region or in your community, what is it that will be acceptable? And today we are connected with the internet, and I know the internet speed may not be as good, but I know primarily it's there, right? And we have the access of information, and we should just use it for our advantage as much as possible. And the only other thing that I can add is if you can spread the word around to somebody around you who can potentially benefit from what you are learning. If you have a friend or somebody you know, I think that is an added service we can do as well.
And goes back to the value add. Thank you, Parul. It's I always say when I work with corporates and they're wondering about project management or who's going to be promoted, whatever, I always say, find yourself a woman. They are the best project managers. There's no other person than a woman who looks beautiful with her red lipstick when she walks into the office, but you don't know what she's done hours before that. Ivana, I want to go to you, speaking a bit about what Parul was saying about, being conscious about trends at a global level, understanding what's happening in the market, but also regional. So I'm not picking on you, Ivana, not at all, but do you think that geography plays a role in our likelihood of success? And about us setting up a business, do you think that it plays a role where we start?
I mean, I think it does if we're realistic. I mean, so we find that it's not just that women struggle to raise funding. We also find that people from ethnic backgrounds also struggle to raise funding. We find that it's easier for people in the US, for instance, to raise funding because there's obviously a lot more money out there that is available to be invested. So yes, that makes a big difference. But what would life be if we didn't have challenges? I think rather than focus on what the limitations are and what the disadvantages we have, what we should focus on is how we can get around them. So it's more difficult for a young person in Nigeria, for instance, to raise funding for a great business idea than it would be for the same person in the US. But nonetheless, we see people here having great success. So we just saw a young team who set up a fintech company. I don't remember what the numbers were, but they just sold their business or to just raise some additional funding from some American investors. And the fact that we have COVID actually has brought quite a few advantages as well. I'm sure that if not for COVID, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, for instance. So your reach, you can build a network. You can network vigorously on LinkedIn, for instance, and reach out to investors and contact all sorts of people digitally that, in a way that we couldn't do it before COVID. So I think what we should do is focus on how we can get around the disadvantages and not just focus on the fact that we do have the disadvantages. But yes, certainly they do exist. And it's easier to raise funding in certain geographies than it is in other geographies. I mean, to be realistic.
Okay, I appreciate that honesty. Antoinette, I want to ask you very quickly because I want to ask all of the ladies, and I see that there are questions coming into the chat box as well, but I want to ask you, what did you not know when you went into business, and what do you wish you had been told?
Yeah, well, starting a business at 26, and this is 16 years ago. There's a lot that I didn't know, Ellen. But I will say that I certainly should have paid more attention to just how nuanced the female founder journey truly is. Whether we like it or not, it is the case. And I, as mentioned before, have expanded my first business to Uganda and Kenya. And so it's not a South African issue that I'm talking about. This is continental, at least in my own experience, right? And then we look at it from a global perspective as well. The female founder journey is highly nuanced. So I wish that I paid more attention to that early on. So for instance, being asked to check into a hotel to close a deal, it became a reality, and something that I didn't anticipate, something that I was very poorly prepared for. And so mitigating this risk wasn't part of my strategy at all. I didn't have a strategy in place to manage it. And I was too ashamed to ask anyone about it or to talk to anyone about it, because I felt like I had to take responsibility for this misogyny. But again, I was young, I didn't know better, right? So certainly something that we as an accelerator program now assist our female founders with, because I used to just walk away. And I walked away every single time, but that meant that I walked away from millions of rands, right? That could have significantly changed my business. But now we assist our female founders to meander that unfortunate part of being a female founder. Yeah, I've also had to become more aware of my own self-limiting beliefs, like imposter syndrome. And this is one that had me sabotaging my own successes early on. So I highly recommend to our female founders out there, I think this is something that we deal with extensively. So these two things for me was the fact that I didn't quite internalize how nuanced the female founder journey was, and the fact that I hadn't dealt with my own self-limiting beliefs very early on in my journey certainly inhibited my own growth. But I'm happy that over the years, the one thing that this journey has helped me with is it's reintroduced me to me. So I've had to deal with those issues, and I'm happy that I have. So just those two things for me, Ellen.
I love you saying that, because when someone else says it, that, you know, something is difficult, or I don't know if I can, then it makes it okay for, you know, for the rest of us to feel that and say that, because the idea is always, you know, you have to be very strong. I've heard many times, you're too weak to be in business. Ivana, from your side, what would you like? What do you wish you had been told?
What do I wish I had been told? I mean, I knew that it was going to be tough, but I wish I had known just how tough it was. I wish I had known just how much rejection I would have to deal with. I certainly wasn't prepared for that. Maybe I'm a bit too sunny-natured. I wish I had been told that it was, I mean, I've learned now how important it is to have the right relationships in place. I wish I had known, I wish somebody had told me that it was okay to ask for help, that it was important to focus on building relationships. I think I've also come to realize, you know, everything that we get in life comes through a relationship, and relationships are currency. I wish somebody had told me how important it was to build relationships. That's something that I have come to realize now. And I rely on that in everything that I do. And in building relationships, it's not just about relationships to take. Relationships are almost like a bank account. You know, you deposit into the relationship. You have to create value for people. You have to do people favors. And when it's time, you must, then you find that you've created capital for other people, and you can extract from that capital. And I think also for us as women, one of the things that we're good at doing sometimes actually is building relationships, but not very good at leveraging those relationships. I went to a session the other day with a gentleman who's like a mentor. And he was talking to me about how they set up one of the biggest banks that operates in Nigeria. He said to me that they sat down one day and they said, if we're going to be successful in this business, they had a list. They said, everybody on this list has to be our friend. We have to be friendly with everybody on that last list. And what they did was they spent the whole year cultivating those relationships. I think for us as women, we're often not very strategic about leveraging relationships, about building relationships. So you have to think about, who are the people that I need in order to be successful in what I'm doing, and then go out and cultivate those relationships. And it's not necessarily in a negative, selfish way, but it's just being realistic. You need to have those relationships in place to go out and cultivate them, but do it in a way that you're actually giving them something and getting something back from them in return. Yeah.
I love that, the reciprocity and the being intentional about creating those relationships. Parul, I mean, you say you grew up with industrialists. Did you know everything, or was there anything that you wish you had been told?
So I would say that I knew a lot, but I would totally underline what both Antoinette and Ivana said, because I grew up in a household of girls, and my dad and my mom, they gave us equal opportunities, never treated us any differently. So the world out there wasn't like that. So I never realized it for a very long time. So reflecting back, sometimes it does feel that, was it because I was a woman? Was it because of the fact I was different or whatever? So I don't know. I would never have the real answer for that. But sometimes ignorance is bliss. The only thing I would say, as a female founder, when I went out, it was very difficult for me to ask for, uh, when I was offering a service or closing out on a commercial deal, I would buckle under the pressure of negotiation, and I would not put a higher price to what I was offering to my customers. So, and it was funny that one of my customers told me that I should be doing that and I should be harder. I'm too soft. So that was a learning I got, and I really, I feel it was a good thing, and he realized it, and it was one of my initial projects as well, with one of my initial customers, and he said that to me. So this was a difficult learning for me, a very difficult process to ask for money, and have that not having that feeling that I'm asking for money, and it was like a rightful money. You delivered a service, now you need to get paid. So that kind of thing, that process took some time. And the second thing was, feeling the responsibility aspect, that you're responsible for everything. And with that, the problem happens is, if there is a problem, so you end up panicking, or you don't delegate. And it did happen a lot of time initially. Very few initial months my team was working, and they were not able to solve the problem, and I was then I had to sit down overnight to fix the code or something like that. They could have come up with the solution, but had I not taken the pressure on myself. So don't take too much pressure, I think, were one of the first year learning. So delegation, finding that framework to delegate, creating that culture right from the start, where you will create a boundary, how you will set up the process, that there is enough buffer, and training yourself on commercial negotiations. And the last thing which I would like to close on, I did not know how to read balance sheets. I don't like accounting, and I still don't know how to read them, and I still don't like to do accounting. So find somebody whom you can trust and work with those functions if you can. And I've been lucky that way. I can rely on them, and they do that for me. I still hate it.
I love the absolute honesty of that. I love that. The first board meeting, and I sat on about 12 years ago. I'll never forget. I have never had anyone make this comment, Parul. And we got the financial statements. I had no idea what I was reading. And I didn't ask for 9 months. I think this is brilliant. This is really, but I just want to say, I'm sorry, but you can never trust really that you need to know yourself. So I want to challenge you to really try. You don't have to be able to compile them yourselves, but you may find out that sometimes we lose because of that. Thank you. Whitney, what do you wish? Because I realize we have to go to questions. I could just talk to you guys forever. Whitney, what do you wish you had been told? Before you went into business?
I really like that comment by you, Parul, about knowing where to set boundaries or taking pressure. I think it's fascinating. I think I'm still in that phase of like absorbing pressure like a sponge, and like, because you just think like, I can do this, I must be able to do it. And it's like, but should you be? Like, I think that's something I wish I've been told, and now I've been told it. Just look out for this. I guess something like, it goes back to that thing about relationships again. And I think Ivana, you made a very good point about that, is if you're not around the right people, you will never get access to the right opportunities. And everything is around people. And so just try to make sure you align yourself, because the doors that will open to you are usually when you are around the right people and people with the right values. So yeah, I think that would be one of the things. And yeah, let's maybe take some questions. I don't even know if I think I was just enjoying listening to that one. Sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, just because I'm asking this doesn't mean that you know, maybe you haven't reached that point. Maybe it's just all been great since you started, and that's also okay. I mean, it's just if there is something that you're thinking of. Just before I hand over to finish off, I want to know, Enrico, are there questions in the chat box, because I can't see them on my phone?
Yes, there's one question by Tasiri. She says, I work in economic development space, mainly supporting SMEs and advocating for the integration into the corporate supply chain. I'm toiling with the idea of starting angel investing or investing in some of these SMEs. What different skills is required for investing for an entrepreneur, if any?
Who is that question for? I feel like our balance sheet specialist should answer that question. Just kidding.
Yeah, I think Parul and Ivana, in terms of becoming an angel investor and investing, you know, in entrepreneurs,
Can't hear actually.
What do they need to do?
I didn't hear that.
Okay, so this person is toiling with the idea of starting angel investing or investing in some of these SMEs. What different skills is required for investing for an entrepreneur, if any? So as an angel investor, what would they then do, and how would they then, you know, what are required for investing for an entrepreneur?
What does
different?
It's
so
not very clear.
As an angel investor, how would they look at, from an angel investor perspective, what would the angel investor look for, and what would the entrepreneur then have to then portray for the angel investor to then find it attractive?
Okay. So one thing is important. You must have a product that is solving a problem, that is meeting a need that people are going to be willing to exchange money for. I just put that in the chat to someone. That's the starting point. Because if you don't have that in place, then obviously you're not going to make any money. So if you think about it from an investor's point of view, they want to make some money. So they have to be willing, they have to have something that will make some money. Secondly, they have to have confidence in you. As an angel investor, I can assure you that we invest not just in the opportunity itself, but also in the entrepreneur. So you have to have some level of comfort that this is somebody with good character. Somebody who, if there's a problem, they will not disappear, but they will come and talk to you about the problem. That's very important. And then the other thing is that it's important also to have a team. It's not, we typically don't like, I don't like to invest in a one-man business. So you have to have a team. It has to be, you have to have some level of structure in place to attract an investor. I mean, those are, I mean, the number of things, but I think those are some of the things that an investor will be looking for. You have to also have a bit of a, you have to understand the market. You have to understand your product. You have to understand, have a defined customer base, be clear about who exactly is going to buy your product. What are the characteristics of your customer? Also, what is the competition like? Who else is interested in selling that product, or who is interested, who sells that product to the customers? So you have to be very aware. There must be some level of awareness about the market, about your product, about your customers. You must have good character. You must have a product that somebody is going to be willing to exchange their money for. Those are some of the things that an investor will be interested in. Maybe Peru would like to shed some more light on that. She's an investor as well.
Yeah, I mean, all those points, Ivana, definitely. I was just reading the question, and how I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, that this person wants to become an angel investor, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah. Is that the question?
Yeah, so that's fine. That's fine. So I guess whatever Ivana said, I mean, it's relevant for an angel investor as well. You have to evaluate the business. You have to evaluate the parameters of that business and the market. the viability of that, how big it can scale, because you're looking for returns at the end of the day, because it's risk capital. And most important as an angel investor, and that's why the word angel comes in, is that you should be ready to lose the money, right? So you should be comfortable about the fact that this money will never come back, and you need to set aside some money for these kind of bets. And that's why it is risk capital. There is no guarantee of return. So that is one thing you really need to look for. And I think I would definitely underline one of the points that Ivana said. Know the entrepreneur. Is that person trustworthy? Do they have credibility? Do they have the right skills? Will they go off to the races or not? All of that is very, very important. So engage with them, do the due diligence, understand the market. Perhaps you want to stay close to their business building process. Find a way that you can engage with them on an official level, so that you can receive updates in some form. You're not operationally involved, but you are involved in some form, so that you can receive updates and stuff like that.
Thank you,
I
Barbara.
can just
And
add one more thing to that. Sorry, Enrico.
Go.
I think it was, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing it correctly, Desire. I'd advise you to also look at existing funds and to collaborate with them. So maybe become a limited partner in existing funds and create a track for those founders that you're seeing are not getting funded right now with an existing fund. By doing that, you're obviously gaining the expertise from existing VCs. So in South Africa, we get a 45% tax break when you become a VC. So I think that alone for me would be enough motivation to become a VC, but I would not necessarily venture out on my own at this point. So I suggest perhaps look at existing funds that align to your values, align to what it is that you want to do. And if they are not addressing a specific track of founders that you're seeing in the market that you want to fund, then you can create that track with them.
Very well.
Thanks. Yeah. And then there's one from Namusa. And she asks, is it always advantageous to start business first or just via NPO first before business? There's a number of businesses that either start off as an NPO first and then venture into the business space once they get the necessary funding or necessary infrastructure in place. So what would you suggest?
So if I can say something towards that, I think that in my opinion, there's two different things. A non-profit is not a for-profit business. So what you sometimes indeed see is that there's social enterprises that are started so that they look at profit, which still means you need to be, sustainable. And it's usually through the data that they collect and the insight that they collect in the market that they serve through the social enterprise vehicle that they realize that they can and that there's value in this knowledge that they have, that they create a for-profit entity. So I've seen, for example, where education and digital literacy skills are done for a nonprofit, that they actually start up a business that's a for-profit, because what happens is they've now developed these coders and they can actually start coding for a company. I don't think so much the question should be, should I start a nonprofit and then a business, or should I start a business and then a nonprofit? Because I really think that the approaches and the way that you are going to grow those entities, be it for profit or not for profit, are completely different. And they are actually also very different worlds. So you're either social enterprise focused and then will later learn, hey, but there is actually a monetary value that I could gain out of this. And that means that your social enterprise is actually also really fulfilling a need. Or you're not interested in impact. You want to make money. And when you've made lots and lots and so much money that you find that you have time to ponder about life, then you might decide that you want to give back. But yeah. I think those are two separate things.
Yeah, correct. So there's just another question from Doreen Thibodeau. She says she's the founder of Empowering Services, an HR consulting company based in Cape Town, and they provide bespoke HR expertise and training for SMEs in South Africa. And then she asked, what advice would you have for a company like mine to expand into Africa initially or globally? What steps to follow and what should I consider? And what lessons have you learned that I could follow? So that is to Antoinette and to Ivana, just to see how, and from an HR perspective, how she can then take the business to the continent and then globally. Ivana?
Okay, so let me rephrase to make sure I heard that properly. This is somebody who runs an HR consulting firm and wants to expand into Africa, right? That's the question?
That's right.
Yeah. Again, I want to say that I think that COVID-19 has offered us a lot of opportunities. So what I would advise you to do is to start to reach out to people via LinkedIn, build relationships in the region that, I mean, that's what I do, build relationships in the regions that you want to expand into. Also attend events, because when you attend events, you get to meet people. And then on the back of that, you get to build relationship with them. There's nothing wrong in setting up a meeting with someone, have a Zoom meeting with someone, for instance, if you want to expand into Kenya, you know, find someone in Kenya who you think may be operating in the same space that you're operating in, set up a meeting with them, talk about how you could collaborate, you know, attend events in Kenya, get to meet people, set up, you can even build relationship with people when it's not very clear what exactly you want to do with them, and just explore and see what happens. You know, be curious and reach out. It's really all about relationships. I mean, that's how you're going to expand. And I think now that a lot of things are happening virtually, that's how you build relationships. Put also content out on LinkedIn, you know, and that will attract people's attention. If you want to expand into Kenya, put content out on Kenya, find out what's happening out there, possibly also maybe do a bit of work for free, offer to do, you know, some pro bono work for free in that locality. And as you start to establish some credibility and build relationships, that will start to open doors for you. Maybe Antoinette may have some, you know, some other ideas.
Thanks, Ivana. I can't echo that enough. It's so important to look at collaborating before you actually step into the country. So that's one thing I didn't do, expanding to Kenya and Uganda. So I was working with Africa's youngest billionaire. So at least I had that as a support system going into Kenya and Uganda, which was amazing. But I think the one thing that I'd highly recommend you do, Tareen, is absolutely establish relationships here, collaborate, get a feel for the region, get a feel for the country and how they do, and see if it aligns to how you do, which is also very important. And then, you know, think about setting up in that country on a full-time basis. And then the second thing, and I wish that somebody had told me this, is that you never expand with your own money. And I did not have deep pockets, so I funded that expansion myself. And yeah, it cost me quite a bit of money. So if you are going to establish a footprint continentally or regionally, make sure that you have built up enough reserves and that you rather approach an investor to support that expansion. Thank
you, Antoinette. And then this is the final question, and maybe Ellen, I'll take a bit of latitude. This is directed at Parul, and I think Parul can then you know, just do some closing remarks as well. But this is from Philip. So Philip is quite active, and he's the founder and CEO of Eclipse Hub and Black Silver Capital. He's also a venture capitalist and an angel investor. And he says, my concern is we discuss this kind of issues and go back to business as usual. It doesn't change a thing. How do we use DueDash to bridge the gap, establish collaborations and partnerships to create opportunities, instill the fact that success is not in short supply, and acknowledge the fact that collaborations shift industries?
It's a very interesting question. So, I mean, I think we did touch upon it briefly during the panel chat that COVID has accelerated many things, and DueDash was launched amidst the pandemic as well. We launched early May. And we created this whole local vision and launched that and spread across 80 countries with more than 2,000 people across the world, with 16 cities where we have ambassadors like Enrico themselves who represent us at the moment. Now, having said that, that's the whole idea, to create a 21st century digital ecosystem in 2020 so that we don't go back to business as usual, and we bring more opportunities and we create that network effects, as I would like to say, with this approach where people sitting in Nigeria or in Cape Town can be connected with people, whether it's in Germany or in the US, and see what is happening, how the world is changing, whether they can contribute. So we do get fantastic ideas out of different parts of the world. And there are a lot of investor connections that are also happening because of that reason through DueDash network. And it's only a start, as I can say, and there's more to come, and the impact will be seen over the period of time as we go along with our other product suites that we will be bringing out in a digital fashion, and enable and create the whole ecosystem of the products and create those network effects to see the impact over the next 3 to 5 years of time. So I don't have a straight answer or a silver bullet at the moment, but I would definitely say we're going to just see the progression of the positive effects as we go along, and the partnerships and the network effects are taking place. And DueDash definitely have some notable partnerships with AWS, with HubSpot, with Freshworks, a lot of other products with which we enable startups right from really idea stage to Series A to Series B level. We go through the due diligence process. We do take an option call to invest in some of the startups as well ourselves. And we basically have the complete plethora of services around them. So I'm sure Enrico, Marcus, and Michael can help you get more information around that. And happy to have a more one-on-one discussion with you, Philip, at a later time to understand your question more in detail and perhaps answer that better.
Thank you very much for that, Parul. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you. Just in closing, I would just like to just thank a couple of people, and thank you very much for all of you for attending this very informative and important session to highlight the issues that female founders face. And then just speaking to that exact point is that I trust that we'll make this conversation, take the conversation further and engage with our networks to assist with DueDash as the conduit. We've got fairly senior corporate executives on the call and government officials that I will be engaging to see how we then can take it further, especially in the ICT field and in the education field and the startup field as well. And then, just taking and ensuring that this doesn't just become another talk shop, but how do we then translate it into real action? So then thank you to Ellen for the fantastic moderation of the session and the meaningful questions to extract valuable information from the panelists. It was really great. And thank you to Parul, our co-founder, for your contribution and great insights to encourage female founders to not give up and to give an international perspective of how you've done things and the different geographies that you've worked in within India and within Germany and within the bigger European context and the USA as well. And Ivana, for sharing your experience from a continental perspective and your immense experience. Female founders should be comfortable with rejection, as you said, and get redirection. Relationships are key, and you need to cultivate them, grow that thick skin. And Antoinette, for your contribution to a very important topic and your passion to empower female founders. I always watch and relate to how you engage within an environment, even if it's electronic, your public personality and the way that you engage. And Whitney, for your insights from a woman in tech perspective and your advice for people to empower themselves through tech and your willingness to empower them contacting you via the DueDash platform and how we then engage. And then finally, it was an honor for me to have co-hosted this session. I have not met any of the panelists personally. It just shows the power of technology and that the world has become smaller, but that we can learn from each other by different mediums. And as Ivana says, if COVID didn't happen, we might not even have had this session or gotten to know each other. So it just shows that technology plays a huge role in us relating to each other and then building the network, the relationships. And as you said, those are the cornerstones of building a good network is by having relationships. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening. And thank you for joining us. And please be on the lookout for some more sessions that we will be hosting and taking Cape Town Sparring to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.